welcome everyone. Giocast 23 here. Been back in Toronto for just a bit about over a month now. And in the last podcast, I'm going to talk a bit about some reflections in the last year. The biggest reflection is time is flying. I don't know if it's because I'm keeping myself super busy, but it just feels like the months are flying by like crazy. And it's been interesting living between two different countries. They're very different, the landscape, the type of people. And what I've been realizing most is the energy, waking up at sunrise there and you're just kind of in the jungle and you're kind of surrounded by nature, and like the nervous system seems to settle a lot easier there. And one thing I've noticed back in Canada is there's just this energy around of this like hustle and bustle. Everything's moving quick. You're at a light, turns green for 1 second, someone's honking at you. Definitely drinking more coffee than I would like to, having at least 2 coffees a day. Where in Costa Rica, I was taking some Bombay and using that. But there's this like constant feel for stimulation and keeping up. And it feels like that's just the collective energy that's kind of seeping in. Now, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories about, pollution and things in the food and the water and those kind of differences. But a lot of people that have traveled have noticed their stomachs and just totally different things when they change your environment. So I don't know if we're going to get into that too much, but definitely feel like it's hard to wake up in the morning. I'm staying up later, and there's definitely a shift in the collective energy. But this year was a year, I was at Rhythmia 3 times this year, maybe more in the last 12 months. And we've seen so much growth within our companies, within myself. And, even just yesterday, people ask me, like, hey, how many times are you going to do plant medicine? When is enough? And it's just that the lessons keep coming. And although they may not be as upfront or as clearing, but they're definitely more and more answers or more questions that come, more and more clarity. And, the big one that's kind of at the end of this year that's been really getting clear is just being clear on intentions. And I may have mentioned this in the last episode, but I've been reading a book by Gary Giocast, The Seed of the Soul, and he has a really good way of putting it that, intention has a cause and effect. There is definitely, when you intend to do something, although on the surface level it may seem great and pure, you really have to be honest with yourself. And those intentions may attract things that are attached to it. Like, for example, going to business with someone and expecting them to really help you or to win is going to attract other people trying to do that same thing to you. Or not disclosing things, like you're selling a house and there's something kind of wrong, but you don't want to say it to them because, it might throw off their ability or their desire to buy something. How is that going to come back into your life? And it's this kind of like brutally honest way of living, of putting all the details in. And I know when you go to business school and you learn, to hustle, it's kind of like you're always looking to get that advantage. You don't want to, in sales too, it's like you're trying to counter every objection. But what I realized looking back is every time I may have done that, and not in like a malicious way, but just like left things out and kind of knowing, I can see where they come back and they creep back into your life. Same thing with starting a business. If you're just doing it to make money, there's all these other things that are going to be attached to that. And so for me, it's been getting really clear on relationships and transparency and intention, and working with people, just being really clear, like transparent about how much time I have to put into something, how much energy I have to put into something. And I found that although it may make certain things harder to kind of come together in the short term, but with that patience, what happens is you're attracting the right people to interact with, attracting the right opportunities. And sometimes we may have a synchronicity to make it seem like, oh, this is the sign I needed and it's perfect. But take that as a sign and not your full answer to commit to. And really just get clear with yourself and talk through the people that you're working with. So, one example in Costa Rica, I went down, had a partner, bought a house, rushed into it because I wanted to get out of Canada at that time. And I thought it was a perfect solution. I fully trusted. And, in some ways it would work. At the time, it may have seemed beneficial for me because I was going to live there. rent free in the beginning, and like all these things which I saw was meeting my needs. And then things happened, and our intentions were no longer aligned, and you know, a lot of issues came out of that. You know, things that I hadn't foreseen, rushing in, where we were living wasn't close to home, and it took like a whole year of kind of like focusing on all the things that were wrong and draining so much of my energy. How often do we do that, where we have a problem and we just think about it? And it wasn't until like right before I left, we did a ceremony, and I was like, okay, you know, I really had set an intention to, you know, heal that relationship, but then also help to focus my energy on creating solutions. And what happens? You know, within a month, all these new opportunities start showing up. I start really just letting go of the story I built around this specific piece of property and the way we were living and all these kind of things. And a new opportunity came up, you know, where we're going to be building a community now, which I'm going to have my own piece of property in. And, you know, all of this new energy coming into that. And it's just a beautiful kind of learning there. And so also in the last year, I did a lot of wachuma, a lot of the cactus medicine from Peru. Met a beautiful family down there last May. And then they came to Costa Rica. And so we did a whole bunch of ceremonies. And again, as I shared in one of these, you know, one of the things I learned a lot was about the ability to believe in people and to always see the best in people. And in this current book, The Sea of the Soul, they talk about, you know, the absence, like darkness is just the absence of light. So, you know, if you see something doing wrong and then you start hating that person because of it, you're bringing more darkness in. And so the goal is the practice is to forgive, to have compassion, to see where that may show up in your life, those similar things, and to do your best to course correct. You know, how can we bring more love into this situation? How can I learn from this to do things differently in the future? You know, it doesn't mean you can't stand up for yourself or set a boundary, but it's that what's the intention also on the other side of that? Okay, so we're going to change this relationship. Maybe I'll get upset in a way to share the way I feel, but then it's important not to continue harboring hatred for someone or something. Because what's going to happen? All that energy you're putting into there is going to be robbing you from that energy that you can put into your creation, to creating the life you love to live, and all of these things. So those have been probably some of the biggest learnings. And also just to be patient, you know, to be patient. Because the perfect things are coming for you. But if you rush, you might miss the best opportunities. And you really have to allow the intuition, the voice of the intuition to, I wouldn't say become louder, but allow yourself to be quiet enough to hear it, you know, because we have so many distractions, and the mind is always looking for ways to kind of avoid discomfort or to avoid pain. So it's distracting. It's looking for things. You know, when we go into the things we don't want to see or to feel, there's a lot of answers can be kind of embedded in there. And so part of my practice has been, when I feel discomfort or something's bothering me, is instead of trying to do more, it's like, how can I really take some time to dig into what's going on? And so that's been an interesting practice. And what I've realized this year is really trying to come back into balance. All these projects, all these great opportunities, but I can't do them all. And, you know, I'm being transparent with people when I'm making commitments as to like what I can commit to and what I can't. But there's something in me that I've realized that never wants to let anyone down, that always wants to make sure that I can make other people happy, because, again, I want them to like me. I want to be liked, which comes from, you know, a fear, a core belief of mine of being alone from one of my kids. So it's still present. And I see that when people ask me to do something, I want to just say yes all the time. So that's one of my core beliefs, which is always showing up, you know, not wanting to let people down, wanting people to like me, you know, and it shows up in many different areas of my life. The other thing this year is we got so deep into music for elemental rhythm. And, you know, along with all this intention and stuff, I started realizing like the essence of this company. And then I started reflecting on other companies. Like, what is it? You know, is it a breathwork company? You know, how do we define what it is at Elemental Rhythm that we do? Because it's more than just breathwork. And so by taking that time to really reflect on what it is and crafting that brand story, so Elemental Rhythm it's a community, and it's a process. And that process is what, helped me to kind of have more self-awareness, and now we're sharing that with others. And that's the process to finding your elemental rhythm, finding your dharma, finding your purpose and path, is to start to kind of like peel away the layers and get down to that core essence of who you are, and to really, really just connect with that. And so we started crafting this brand story about, dharma and all these different philosophies, religions around the world, and how they talk about, this similar thread is about, getting back to your core, getting back to your dharma, getting back to your, let's see, like right here, like the Tao, and getting in. So all of these guys are trying to, or all these philosophies are talking about, getting back to this core of who you are, this essence, living in accordance with some principles. And it's this pursuit of like moral and ethical principles. It's also the personal growth and self-realization are really important for finding purpose and fulfillment. Creating this harmony within yourself and others and the natural world, which what we need to come back into alignment with. A lot of plant medicine helps that. The breath work helps that. Spending time in nature helps that. Meditation. And realigning with your true nature will help you to come back into alignment with your purpose. And all of these things, sort of in accordance with these universal laws, brings about a sense of fulfillment. And a lot of times it even includes, being of service to others, going beyond yourself without expectation, just giving unconditionally, and understanding that the universe always gives back. Always. It's always there to give back. May not be exactly in a direct interaction or in a transactional way, but the more you give without expectation, the more it comes back. And so I started looking at all these different cultures around the world, from all over the world, and they all talk about these same things, compassion, empathy, cooperation, harmony, and being in harmony with nature. So that's what elemental rhythm is. And we use the breath work, and we use community and support, and different various ways of science, to get your brain into a more suggestible state. But it's such a beautiful way as I craft this story, it becomes clear, not only to me, to anyone who kind of interacts with us, for our team, to kind of have this kind of guiding intention behind that whole organism of elemental rhythm. And I think the same process can be done for any business, for yourself, within your family, just talking about some guiding principles, like what makes this unit. And so, that's like just drilling down the essence. So we have some sort of roadmap that really feels good and everyone's in alignment with. And when you get people all aligned, or when you can get yourself aligned, it makes the path forward much more easier, if that makes sense. And so some of the other projects that came up this year was we're going to be launching a rapé business, which is a tobacco snuff kind of product from the Amazon, which is mixed with different ashes from different trees that have these properties, and there's tribes that they say prayers on them in ceremony. And I find that it really brings me into balance. And what I really initially just wanted was to have access to it. And what spawned was a company with a good friend of mine, and my brother and Aaron and Mitra are all involved now, and we're going to be launching this company. And so we created this beautiful brand around. It's taken us over a year to kind of cultivate it, but that was kind of all about that intention. And so it's a legal product. It's tobacco based, and our intention is to really connect with the tribes that are creating it, in ways we can support them and maybe protect their natural habitat, in ways we can kind of introduce this to the Western market in the right way, as like an intentional product that's used for meditation, that's used for bringing yourself into the present moment. And since the last podcast, I had to do some traveling, went out to Florida, still involved in the food business where I get to help my brother. And I got to meet up with some interesting people there, because I always use these kind of trips, see who can I meet, who's in the area, who can I connect with. And so I got to connect with some of our brother facilitators there. And then, I was invited to a 40th birthday in Bahamas, and I really realized there, like, it was nice to go from a different kind of lens, because maybe 10, 15 years ago, I went there, got wasted, partied, did all these crazy things. And I was just there, really just observing and just realizing how, it wasn't really my scene anymore. But it was so great to be there with some of my friends that I had grown up with, and some family. And I was going to bed by like 11:30, and everyone's going out to the club. So it was an interesting experience for sure. Then I got to go to LA, and I met with friend Sunil, And Sunil is a new friend. He took our facilitator training. We're working on some breathwork tracks together right now. And he wrote a book called Backable, which is a really, really great book. He's such an amazing storyteller. And he also wrote a book called Dharma, which is where some of these kind of lessons that I'm bringing into the breath work and, to other aspects. Because really, when you really understand the concept of Dharma, it's about bringing you back to that essence of who you are. And so we got to jam about that. And, as I mentioned in the last podcast, or a couple months ago at Rhythmia, I want to write this book. About my life story, and that there comes a lot of trepidation, fear of like just really being vulnerable and sharing all these crazy stories, but also got me to really reflect on the essence of all these things that happened to me and how important each one of them were. The most uncomfortable things, the hard parts, facing my fears in so many different ways through business, through life experiences, and really kind of reflecting on all the lessons that were learned. It was such a beautiful process for me just to integrate all these experiences in my life, and really looking forward to share it. And there's this question: do I self-publish? Do I try to get a publisher? And so Sunil really was helping me and guiding me on what he did, and just really talking to so many different people about what that could look like. So I'm excited to start working on that. It's going to be a process, which should be coming in the next year or so. And at the same time, all the synchronicity, all these opportunities are popping up. And, a few years ago, I did the creative visioning process. I do it from time to time. It's a course on elementalrhythm.com where you really just take a look at your life and start mapping out this ideal future. And you write a letter to yourself. And so many times when I do this process, all these things are coming true. And so I've been traveling and connecting with people and having these opportunities. We did a breath work in LA. So after Bahamas, I went to go meet Sunil in LA because there's another food thing there, food show I was helping my brother with. We ended up doing a breathwork session there, and famous actors showed up, which I had no idea that we were going to be in the class until after. And it was amazing how like many lives you can touch and people you can connect with just through the breathwork and just through being in this kind of natural flow, which we'll call our elemental rhythm. And then I met with Sunil, gave me some of that, and then I went to go meet with Piper Dellums, who is just an amazing, amazing human being that I met at Rhythmia, and who is working now to create these healing hotels around the world. And she was in the music industry and the film industry, and her father was a diplomat that helped to free Nelson Mandela and was very active during the whole apartheid thing. And we just got to sit down and talk, and I shared my life story with her because she wanted to help me to see like, is it best to like create a Netflix documentary or a book? And I was supposed to stay until Thursday, and just so happens that a month ago I saw an Instagram reel about a friend of mine in Toronto, Giovanni Mercico, who runs these huge Archangel events. And I'd always had gone to them in the past and, messaged him back and forth. He's like, hey, join my mastermind. All you gotta do is buy a ticket to the next Archangel and you're in. So I was like, wow, okay. Let me just check this out and see what it's all about, see what I can learn, see what value I can bring. And, just so happens, so I sign up there. I have a quick chat with him about joining the group. It's a weekly call. My friend Zark, who's also a breathwork facilitator, is throwing this breathwork event. He said needs some help, so I just go down to help him facilitate. And Gio, the founder, just happened to show up synchronistically. So, we connected there. He got to experience the breathwork, and then he invited me to share breathwork with his whole one of his higher level mastermind communities. So a lot of incredible people. Some of them I had already known from Toronto, and I was supposed to be in LA at that time, but it just so happened that a couple of days before, the whole trip kind of got pushed up a day, so I could be back a day early, and the schedule was just aligned. So I said, perfect, I'll do it. And so I go there, and not only is, a few people that I know and I haven't seen for a while, like UJ and Sachin and a few other friends, but a friend from Rhythmia, Alex, was there, and a few other people were there who ended up wanting to take our facilitator training after that experience. And there's even someone I look up to in the breathwork space, Samantha Kelly, who has this huge breathwork brand, Pause, which I think is amazing. Ended up participating in the breathwork. So at first I was like, ooh, this is gonna be interesting. There's a little bit of that intimidation with someone that you kind of look up to, but it was amazing. She was so supportive, and we got to chat after about breathwork. And it's just so funny how, I just, decide to give in that situation, and, without expectation, and ask for any money. I donated a bunch of blindfolds, and, 3 people reached out about taking the training, in Sedona that we're doing this fall. And if you're interested, please reach out. Breathwork facilitation will change your life. you can add it to what you're doing right now. You can do it as a separate thing. There's so many amazing things that come out of breathwork facilitation, being a facilitator, and anyone can do it if you have the calling. And so, all these synchronicities are happening. So, I end up coming back and connecting and doing this breath work and connecting with Gio, and then, being able to kind of have the honor to kind of share with his tribe, and then making all these amazing connections there. And then, people have wanted to come and take the training in Sedona in the fall. And so I'm just really trying to surrender into this flow and to just share authentically. And that's kind of like what this last year has been, and really trying to get back into a time flow is my new focus for this year, is to get as much time back as possible, so I can really put the time into what I bring the most value to, and I feel like, really diving into the essence of these companies and these brands and what we're doing, just to get super clear. And when you get super clear, the path forward becomes much more easy to navigate, because you really know what you're looking for, and you really know what's in alignment. And the alignment process, getting back to our elemental rhythm, takes time. But that is the whole process. So I hope that kind of came full circle, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And I encourage you guys to reach out. I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what you guys are up to, how you connected with me. Elemental Geo on Instagram, and elementalrhythm.com if you want to check out some of our stuff. Peace.